On a moonless night, 7 samurai stood alone on a windswept ridge, watching an army of 700 men prepare to erase them from history. This is a true story-inspired legend, passed down from the bloodied hills of the Sengoku era, when Japan was torn apart by warlords, betrayal, and fire. It was a time when a single blade could change the fate of a nation, and on this night, 7 warriors faced a test no army should survive. They had no reinforcements. No hope of retreat. Only the steel in their hands and the fire in their hearts. Each had come to this place from a different path, but now they stood together for one purpose, to hold the village of Torikawa until their last breath. Takeda Genzo, the leader, once commanded thousands under Lord Aramori. A samurai of noble lineage, his fall from grace came not from defeat in battle, but from betrayal by those closest to the throne. When Aramori's castle was stormed and the banners of loyalty were cut down, Genzo chose exile over surrender. His armor was old, patched with iron from battles long past, and his sword bore chips from 10 campaigns. Yet his presence was steady, his gaze calm, and his voice, though quiet, carried the weight of command. Beside him, Soma Jiro crouched low, inspecting the edge of his katana under the flickering light of a torch. He spoke no words. A fire years ago had taken his voice and half his face, but his eyes were sharp, his movements quicker than most men could follow. Some said he had once served as a personal guard to the shogun himself. Others whispered darker things. He carried 3 knives in his belt and a tanto hidden in his sleeve. His silence unnerved even seasoned warriors. Hayato the Red was the youngest of the adult samurai, fiery, impulsive, with a shock of unbound hair and the eyes of a man who had lost more than he dared speak of. His twin swords were curved slightly more than most, custom forged for his acrobatic style. He paced like a wolf before the hunt, muttering to himself and cracking his knuckles. "I only need 50, he said to no one in particular. "Leave the rest to you old men." Takashi the bowman lay on his belly atop a craggy outcrop, his bow resting beside him, his eyes locked on the darkened forest below. He had the look of a hunter, lean, scarred, and focused. The fletching of his arrows was dyed blue, a custom of his now vanished clan. His entire family had been wiped out during a coastal raid, and he had vowed never to sheath his bow until their memory was avenged. "They move like ants," he muttered, watching the enemy approach through the trees. "But faster. They'll be here before the mist lifts." Katsumi the monk stood barefoot at the edge of the shrine, his head shaved clean, his robes tattered and stained from the road. A former warrior who had taken religious vows after surviving a massacre at his temple, he had sworn never to draw his blade again. Yet tonight, his sword rested at his hip, its hilt wrapped in prayer beads. He whispered sutras under his breath, touching each bead as he prepared for what must come. "If I fall," he told young Riku, who stood nearby, eyes wide, "remember that peace must sometimes be carved from war." Mai of the Iron Hand was the tallest among them and the strongest by far. Once a village blacksmith, she had become a fighter after her husband and son were killed during a tax rebellion. Her left arm had been shattered and repaired with a brace of wood and iron she'd forged herself. In her right hand, she carried a war hammer that looked more suited for cracking stone than helmets. "Let them come," she said as she hauled barrels of oil into position along the upper ridge. "We'll light their way to hell." And then there was Riku. Barely 15, he had no rank, no formal training, and no bloodline of note. But he had eyes that missed nothing and a will to prove himself. Genzo had brought him along not as a warrior, but as a witness, to see what true courage looked like when death loomed on every horizon. Down below, the enemy moved. General Kuroda's force stretched through the valley like a dark river. 700 strong. A Shigeru spearman. Archers. Cavalry. Torchlight flickered across iron helmets and rows of war banners. Kuroda had taken Lord Aramori's capital and now marched to finish the job, to erase any symbol of resistance. Torikawa was not a military target, it was a message. From a lookout post, Takashi whispered, 3 hours. Maybe less. Genzo turned to his men. We stand for the innocent. That's all that matters now. There's no retreat. No reinforcements. Only us. None of the others argued. None flinched. They split into pairs to prepare. Mai and Hayato coordinated with the villagers to dig narrow trenches and camouflaged pit traps along the lower pass. Hayato, despite his usual arrogance, worked quickly, even teaching two teenage boys how to set up a tripwire. Keep your eyes down, he told them. And if you hear hoofbeats, run like your hair's on fire. Takashi moved from perch to perch, marking arrow ranges, adjusting elevation markers, and calculating the angle of wind. He carried no sword, just a bow and 60 arrows, each hand-fletched and inscribed with the name of a loved one. Jiro explored the inner shrine and uncovered an old escape tunnel beneath the stone floor. He traced its path in the dirt for the others to see. The tunnel led through a cluster of cedar trees and out to the river, a possible path of retreat. But no one spoke of using it. Still, Jiro showed Riku every turn of the map. Why me? Riku asked. Jiro didn't answer. He simply placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and moved on. Katsumi remained at the shrine gate, burning incense and marking the walls with ink symbols. A group of villagers gathered around him, seeking solace. He blessed them all, one by one. No fear, he told them. No hate. Only resolve. As night deepened, the samurai regrouped on the ridge. The stars above were hidden behind mist. The enemy had stopped their march, preparing for a pre-dawn assault. They'll strike before first light, Genzo said. Good, Hayato replied. I fight better in the dark. No one laughed, but the tension eased for a moment. The villagers were ordered into the shrine cellar. A few tried to offer swords, but Genzo refused. Your duty is to survive, he said. Let us do ours. Then came the drums. Low, rhythmic, growing louder with every beat. From the tree line, the enemy advanced. Takashi was the first to act. His arrows whistled through the air, striking torches, sowing confusion. Flames danced as men stumbled. A scream pierced the night. Hayato launched from behind a barricade, blade spinning, slashing through the first wave. He moved like wind, too fast to follow, too dangerous to ignore. Mai lit the oil traps with a torch. Fire spread in an instant, creating walls of flame between enemy squads. The battlefield turned to chaos. But Kuroda was no fool. He sent a second detachment around the eastern ridge. They're flanking. Riku shouted, pointing. Genzo moved immediately, ordering Jiro and Katsumi to intercept. As they approached the east ridge, a flaming arrow struck the shrine. The roof caught fire. Smoke billowed. Then came the betrayal. A villager, one of the scouts, had signaled the enemy. The tunnel's entrance was no longer a secret. Genzo's jaw clenched. We have to collapse it. Now. He and Riku raced to the hidden passage. Enemy soldiers were already swarming it. Cover me. Riku cried, lighting a fuse. With a deafening roar, the tunnel imploded, burying invaders and sealing the exit. They had no way out now. Only through. By first light, the battlefield was drenched in ash and blood. Takashi had taken a spear to the thigh but still held his post. Hayato had a deep gash across his chest but kept smiling. Katsumi, now wielding his blade, stood over a ring of fallen men, breathing hard. Then came Kuroda himself, mounted, leading a final charge. His armor gleamed. His sword had no notches. He cut through defenders like paper. Genzo met him in the center. Their blades clashed once. Twice. The third strike pierced armor. Kuroda fell. The army hesitated. Jiro, covered in blood, seized the war banner and raised it upside down, the enemy's signal for surrender. Confusion rippled. Some fled. Others were cut down by villagers who had taken up the fallen weapons. The sun rose. Of the 7, only Genzo, Jiro, and Riku remained standing. Takashi had died with an arrow knocked. Katsumi sat cross-legged, unmoving. Mai lay beside her hammer, eyes closed. Hayato's last words were a whisper, "Told you, 50. That day, Torikawa was saved. That night, the legend was born. Thank you for watching. If this tale moved you, subscribe to Samurai Tales for more stories of courage, loyalty, and the warriors who shaped history.